Our next guest actually believes Chinese short video, this app comes to the market at a very fortunate time. Joining us now is Howard Yu, Professor of Management and Innovation at IMD Business School. Howard, good morning. It's timing that helps. Is it only timing, though?
Well, timing definitely helped in a way that right now, because we saw the pullout from the Ant Group IPO and all this pan-up investment demand is really channeling to Kuaishou, as we saw. But I think fundamentally, there are a couple of things really play on the advantage of this app. For one thing, live streaming is huge in China, and they are able to really capitalize on the commercial arena as well, whether it's tipping, giving on virtual goods to your favorite stars. These all combination is really riding on the big trend on e-commerce. So riding on top of these growth story around Chinese tech companies, I think this is why we see this enthusiastic demand from the stock market today.
Yeah. In fact, 42 million shares already traded, and we're barely 5 minutes into the session here. Howard, and I'm not casting shade on Kuaishou at all, but to your point, since you brought it up, if you had to pick, though, Kuaishou or ByteDance?
Well, they do have a very, very different focus area, right? If you're thinking about ByteDance, obviously they have a much bigger user base. It's almost double the user size as well as revenue at the moment. But keeping in mind, TikTok or Douyin is really focusing on this hip urban user, versus Kuaishou is really focusing on the villages, the rural areas, and with the backlash against the billionaire class in China, I think Kuaishou actually have a very interesting value proposition going forward.
How are they monetizing this demand?
Well, they have couple of things, right? They have ads like the conventional one, but they also have live streaming, whereas all these like microstar essentially doing live stream to sell their stocks, to sell their wares, but it's also allowing people to tip your favorite online stars as well. Now, that part is interesting because giving in China is actually quite big. In fact, their backer, Tencent, they have this WeChat app, and WeChat first mover and breaking the stranglehold of Alipay is really around this gamification of mobile payment. And so in a way that Kuaishou is really taking the same playbook in gamified these tipping mechanics. And so this is a huge deal. And I think this is going forward would be the future of e-commerce as well. So it's definitely an area to pay attention to.
Okay, so the gamification, that helps the stickiness when it comes to their users. Does it potentially, longer term, present a regulatory risk? We've seen in the past, when it comes to video games here in China, that regulators have stepped in over concerns about addiction. You've got that. You've also got the content question. And we know that here in China, a lot of content is curtailed, it's blacklisted, it's blocked. How much of a challenge is that for the business?
I think this is the fundamental risky area. If there's one big major risk, it's the regulatory environment. Because for the longest time, the Chinese government are very supportive to tech companies. And all of a sudden, we see almost a reverse trend right now. The government are paying much more attention in terms of content quality, all the way to the way business is conducted and whether you're monopoly or not. To the favor of Kuaishou is really a relatively small player, so they probably won't be accused of being a monopoly. And to their favor, I think, is because of their client base. It's remained mostly on rural area, the villages and so on. So probably compared to TikTok or Douyin or other major play like WeChat, they probably would getting away a bit more compared to other tech giant in the eyes of regulators as well.
Yeah, but I mean, Howard, if you're an investor, though, you hope that the company becomes big. And, many people are now wondering if you buy it, especially at these valuations, at some point, are you buying something that eventually runs into the same issues that you point out? Does the target market, just to build on that, do you think the target market and the actual business, social media more than, say, financial stability, then there's two different things. Do you think that shelters and provides more protection for this company and also ByteDance?
Well, for the time being, in the near term, I think there is still a little bit of buffer and protection. But in order to justify the valuation already quite high at this moment, the pressures for Kuaishou to really quickly diversify into other businesses as well. Because if they couldn't leverage their core competencies and diversify into new businesses, then it's really hard for them to sustain the kind of PE ratio we're looking at right now. So at IMD Business School, we always talk and remind executives that if you are not continue to generate growth prospect, then your share price is going to hit the limit relatively soon. And so right now, the investor really have a high expectation in terms of the future growth of this app.
Howard, just great insights here. In terms of the money that they've raised, $5.4 billion US dollars, how are they going to deploy that? Where is the focus going to be? You've talked about the need to diversify the business.
I think fundamentally there is something around to do with their core business in terms of the database, the AI, and that is really the war for talent, right? Because there's only so much top tier engineers you can fight for. And historically, what make Kuaishou really successful is they were able to poach engineers from even Google as well. So I think majority of these comes down to recruiting talent, really getting the fundamental, the IT infrastructure to be really world-class, compare heads-on with WeChat and other players as well. And then on top, would be a lot of offline integration as well, whether it's running advertisement and to do with a lot of offline operation as well. Those areas would be also rather capital intensive. So in order for them to justify their growth rate, I think all these capital raise, in fact, are pretty urgent for a player like Kuaishou.
All right, and I don't mean to do it, but to plug what you authored, Leap, How to Thrive in a World Where Everything Can Be Copied. That's how you do it. Technology, talent, double T. Howard Yu, great stuff. IMD Business School professor there.